Good evening and welcome to the Town of Yorktown Planning Board public meeting of December 21st, 2020. As we always do, we would like to begin the meeting by saying the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic
for which it stands,
one
nation,
under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Chairman Fon was not able to be with us for the beginning of the meeting this evening, so we are going to move through the agenda until he gets here. First item on the agenda, of course, is correspondence, and we do have a couple of pieces of correspondence. One from Susan Siegel regarding procedural issues specific to courtesy of the board, public hearings, written comments, and televised work sessions. With the permission of the board, I would like to address these concerns and comments when we have a more complete board, and maybe we could set up some format on the suggestion of Mr. Bach that we move into the new year with a definite outline of procedural issues. We have recapped some of the comments from prior meetings. They're part of the record in regard to public hearing and written comment and public input. We do, which is not typical of all towns, we have two public hearings. One is a public informational hearing to introduce the project to the public, and the second is a formal public hearing. But we will discuss that as a complete board sometime in the near future. Second piece of correspondence also from Ms. Siegel, which discusses the application of the golf course on the north end of town off Route 6, Part 3 golf course. That, you know, she has concerns over work continuing at that site. She says she's been advised that since the October 26th hearing, work on the golf course continues in and around the stream and only ceased as a result of last week's snowstorm. I don't know who is advising her or how they are advising her or what information she's getting. She is concerned that the work is proceeding without proper permits, and she wanted to know who would be responsible for issuing notices of violation and penalties, etc. In regard to those matters, they have filed a SWIP and they have been issued a permit by the DEC to do the work in and around the stream. What I'd like to do as a board, and with the approval of the other board members present, is have the planning department refer this matter to the engineering department, who is probably the best authority in this regard and responsible for reviewing any work and determining if it is being done properly. If that is okay with the rest of the board, then we'll ask the planning department to do just that, so that the various town departments do take care of things, whether it's a code enforcement issue or the engineering department. We'll ask them to do what they're supposed to do. This is not really our responsibility at this point in time. The work that's being done is not pertinent to our current site plan application in regard to the restaurant, the parking, the ingress, the egress, et cetera, and so forth. So if anybody has comments on that, please feel free to offer them.
I think that John Tegeter, you could perhaps just explain a little bit about our role as a planning board in this process versus some of the other things that are going on. It'll help explain this, where we are in the situation.
Okay. Well, I mean, the genesis of the project was, it's town-owned land, and the town board wished to get the land utilized once again as a recreational facility, namely a golf course. They entered into an agreement with a private group, and they executed an agreement, and from there the group started work, and became evident that there needed to be a little bit more oversight to the execution of that work, at which point the planning board became involved to cure the procedural difficulties that were developing there. I think the work that is being cited here is part of the actual refit of the golf holes, the tee boxes, the greens, and so on and so forth, which I think has been thoroughly reviewed. It's been reviewed by DEC. DEC did actually issue a stop work order, and then there was some corrective action taken, and they issued the go-ahead and a permit. So all of that has been looked at. When the planning board looks at site plans, a large part of what they do, what you guys do, it has to do with making sure that the operation of a site in terms of its human functions, driving, walking, getting in and out of buildings, in terms of the public safety, health, and welfare and the operational qualities of the site is what you guys do. And that's still valid for what you're doing in terms of the parking lot and its relation to the building and getting people ingressing and egressing out of the site. The work that's being done out on the greens is not going to change. It's been looked at, and I think vetted by you guys in terms of the SWIP and also DEC and DEC's permitting process that they instituted last year. So I think it would be unusual for that work to be able to continue given the situation that has developed with this particular project. So if that answers your question, Aaron, I think that's...
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, John. Okay, and then we did have a piece of correspondence come in today from Joe Rena of Site Design Consultants in regards to the Lowe's site and parking. And that's just a brief note. He asked to be able to speak to this point in regard to the number of parking spaces on the site as a whole. Lowe's management, it's addressed, Dear Chairman Fahn, members of the planning board, the Lowe's management plan has been modified with striping within the parking area from what was approved on the original site plan. Excuse me. In the vicinity of the contractor service area, 14 standard parking spaces were eliminated and replaced with 3 truck and trailer parking spots. These would be elongated spots to accommodate contractors. This modification has been summarized in the attached parking comparison, which we'll discuss later, where the original approved parking count is being compared with the current approval based on what is required for the current proposed usage. There is an excess of 27 parking spaces to be shared amongst the tenants. We would like the opportunity to discuss this at our presentation tonight for your review. So we'll discuss that later on. I'm not aware of any other correspondence that may have come in subsequent to that. If there's anything else, I'll rely on staff to inform me of that. But I think that's it for tonight. In terms of the correspondence, any comments in regard to any of it that has not been addressed already?
No.
And then we'll move on to the meeting minutes from our planning board meeting of December 7th, 2020. If everyone has had a chance to review the minutes. But once again, part of that meeting was reviewing correspondence regarding courtesy of the floor. I did have one comment on the Mohegan Court application in the last paragraph, the second sentence. Mr. Tegater responded that he spoke with Mr. Zappi. This is in regard to the fence around the stormwater basin. Spoke with Mr. Zappi, and the fence will match the wrought iron fence on the plan. I believe it's a wrought iron look fence or a wrought iron type fence, correct? It's probably powder coated aluminum, but if we can modify that, just to say that it's going to match, you know, however we modify that to say it will match the fencing on the plan. Later, in regard to the Colangelo subdivision, at the top of page 4, in that first paragraph, Mr. Glatar agreed and stated that the zoning deals with the use of the land, not the ownership of it, so the exact entity and structure can be left to the parties to decide. This is in regard to the conservation easement. I don't know if indeed the zoning does deal with the use of the land, but are we dealing with planning issues here? Should it be the planning deals with the, Jim, maybe you want to comment and clarify on what, you had in mind there, just so it becomes part of the permanent record?
What I intended by that, Mr. Chairman, was to say that the board can proceed to decide the application now, even though the actual formal ownership of the easement area will not be known until sometime in the future. So the planning board is just dealing with the physical use of the easement area, not who owns it.
Okay, so with your permission, then, I'd like to strike the word zoning and put in that the planning board deals with the use of the land. Is that adequate? And
that would be acceptable, yes.
okay. Other than that, just above that, actually, we're talking about resolution regarding the 5-acre area, or the 5 acres. We would want to refer to that in the first line on that page. The next application, the Albert French application, I think just for the sake of clarity, because we're dealing with 3 single-family residences on a single lot, and they're proposing to subdivide that lot for the future. And Mr. Tegater's point, I think, was well taken when he asked if there were a total of 3 dwelling units. We're not talking about 3 two-family houses. And Mr. Rena responded that yes, they are 3 single-family houses. I think in the 1, 2, 3, the third sentence, perhaps we would want to say, he noted they are creating a new lot with a single 1-family residence. In other words, creating a new lot with a single-family residence. I would like to modify that to say a single 1-family residence, just for clarity. And it goes on to talk about zoning in 1-family residences in that zone. And other than just minor spelling or grammatical suggestions, I think the next, Robin, you corrected us on the Stammer subdivision, lot number 2. The description of that proposal would now be the appropriate time to correctly describe that proposal before the board or the application. The proposed combination of subdivision lots 2 and 3 for 1 home. You corrected it last meeting, but we should make that part of the record then. They have purchased lots 2 and 3, but they're still asking us to review at the present time lot number 2, correct?
Correct.
So I don't think we should have the combination. What is it, the proposed? How should we describe this application so that as it moves forward, we have a clearer understanding?
I thought I said that it was Stammer subdivision lot 2.
Okay, so that's what we'll label it in the minutes too, with your permission. Is that right? Mm-hmm. Good. Other than that, I have no substantive comments, and I open it up to anybody else.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I second that.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you very much, Jen. Now we'd like to move on to the regular session. The first item on the agenda is the Broccoli subdivision. Looking for a decision statement on the land at 315 Crow Hill Road. And Michael Dubofsky, the applicant. Mike is here with us, I hope. I don't see him on my screen.
Hello, everybody. Michael can't be here tonight, so he asked me just to sit in for him. I'll try. He gave me a brief description of what's going on. Hopefully, I can answer any questions.
Good. Okay. Joseph Rena for the applicant for this evening. We have a two-lot subdivision creating a lot that is specifically not to be used as a building lot, created for the use of the adjoining property owner. Joe, I don't know if you want to describe it or if we just go with our understanding from the prior meeting of what was going on. John Tegeter, there were no other issues that needed to be addressed, correct?
No, this is a simple transfer of property.
Mm-hmm.
And it's akin to, sometimes you'll see, for information purposes, things come through for you, that is a lot line adjustment, which sometimes change, you're essentially moving a lot line. And it's akin to that in that it is not creating a new building lot. So this lot that is created will be transferred and the new owner will be able to enjoy it as new property, but it will not be able to be developed with a single family house unless it comes back to the planning board. And that is noted on the plat that will be signed by the chairman and the secretary of the board.
Okay.
That's my understanding.
Anybody have any comments on this? Members of the board? Council?
Nothing from me.
Okay. So then with the board's approval, I would like to move forward with the decision statement. We have a resolution prepared for this. If everybody's had a chance. I'll entertain a motion to approve the subdivision, creating the new lot, but not for an additional building lot.
Motion.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Okay, second item is the Lowe's Home Center. A decision statement for the proposed amended site plan for a 12,500 square foot building to accommodate a specialty grocer on the site. Here for the applicant, Joseph Rena. And Joe, I don't know if you were here, I did read your correspondence regarding the parking. So if you would elaborate a little bit on that and what's gone on with the Lowe's site in general, and then any specific issues to the specialty grocer that is coming to town, we hope.
Sure. Robin, can I take the screen?
Sure. Should be able to. You should be good.
Okay. So the Lowe's management or ownership took it upon themselves without notifying the Breslin Group that they going to restripe the parking lot. So the area they restriped, it's here in red. And as John mentioned earlier, this is for contractors. Often contractors are pulling trailers or have longer vehicles. So this gives them the ability to pull in and park without creating any double parking issues or blocking anyone in. And again, eliminating 14 standard spaces and replacing them with these 3 longer spots here. So we did an analysis to see whether or not this would have any impact on the original approval and the overall parking count for the Lowe's site. So this is the original approval. There was 375 spaces required for Lowe's, 122 for Pad A, 72 for Pad B, 16 for Pad C, for a total of 585 spaces. The number of spaces provided is 585 spaces. The proposed required, now this is based on applying the standards to the type of use and the square footage of each use. The required number of parking spaces for the overall site, including Lowe's, and you'll see across here we use 16 spaces for Pad C because that's what was originally approved, and we haven't proposed anything new yet, so we're just going to keep that number and carry that through. So that totals to 514 spaces. And the proposed provided, that's what we're providing, full count, including eliminating those 11 spaces, the net 11 spaces on the Lowe's site, we end up with 541 spaces. So 585 less 541 is, I'm sorry, 514, where am I? I'm sorry, 585 less 514, something's wrong here. My math is wrong somewhere. Anyway.
Oh, it's 514 and 541. You're providing 541 and the required is 514. I think we talked about.
Right, that's where the 27 is correct. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and
I'm referring back to this number. All right, so we're providing 541, which really required to service the site according to the regulations gives us an additional 27 spaces to be shared.
And just to review, that was because the proposed use of the grocer now, as opposed to a restaurant, if I remember, they were hoping for a restaurant tenant. Is that the difference in the number of spaces?
Right, so you can see Pad A was originally 122 spaces needed or required, but based on the new use, the grocer, we only require 88 spaces. So there's a gain there of that number, 54 spaces. There's a gain with that. So Pad B, you could see we were 1 spot over what was originally proposed. So pretty much it's a wash there. As I said, Pad C is we're carrying through what was originally approved on the original site plan.
Okay, I'm going to rely on John Tegeter once again to go through the parking requirements. I'm not sure if you had a chance to do it, John, but.
Well, just going through it like this is enough in terms of the displacement of the 14 spaces. Because as Joe started out, we knew that Pad A originally was approved for a much higher parking count due to a restaurant. So this seems just fine, and in fact there is 27 spaces excess in what they're providing than what is needed under the new calculation. So I think this is fine. So my recommendation is that the resolution that you have for Lowe's Pad A tonight, that you include a approval of this modification to the entire site in that resolution, since it's very focused on these 14 spaces moving into this 3 space, long space for contractors. So it seems fine to us.
Great. So can we rely on you to modify that.
Yes.
Where would you, okay.
Yep. We will, if you approve it with that proviso tonight, we will write the required whereas clause and resolved clause that approves that.
Okay, members of the board, any comments?
Yeah, so in the resolution that was proposed for us tonight, there's a section in there which discusses the parking to our satisfaction. Have we now then met that requirement? You'll just put in the numbers?
I mean.
Yes, I believe that's so.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Anyone else? Council?
Nothing from me, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, so in regard to Lowe's Home Center, the approval for Pad A for the specialty grocer, but taking into account obviously the site as a whole, with the appropriate modification to accommodate the amended parking plan for the Lowe's Home Center itself. Do I have a motion to approve that site plan as currently proposed?
Can I add one thing in?
Sure.
Acting Chair?
Sure.
I would recommend that in one of the requirements or resolved paragraphs that you are acknowledging that the architectural treatment of the building is and part of your approval, and that it need not be changed unless they come back to you for any amendment to that.
Okay, once again, if you want to fine tune that language, that would be great.
Yes, we will.
Okay. Great. So with the further comments of Mr. Tegater for that approving resolution, do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Second.
Okay, I'm going to have Garrigan on the second there, Nancy, if you couldn't hear. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Hey, John, I have a quick question for John Tegater. Is there any role that we play or anything that we should do, given that Lowe's kind of went ahead and did this, and I know Breslin wasn't even aware of it, but it seems to be, it could have been a fairly material change. Is there anything, any role we play in that or anything we should do?
Well, I think you're doing it tonight. Good thing for them that it has worked out in this way. But, if notwithstanding Lowe's Pad A or the Pad A, if Lowe's had gone ahead and done that, that would have been a site plan violation, and they could have been violated and noticed and would have been required to come to you just as, and you would have gone through this exercise without possibly the benefit of Pad A at the moment, but nevertheless, the same exercise you would have gone through. Okay. And if they didn't have enough parking, it would be under your authority to ask them to remove it and put it back as it was.
Had similar, actually, somewhat similar incidences in the past. Most recently, I think, with the restaurant up on East Main Street in Shrub Oak. They expanded the restaurant, and we had to review the parking and modify the plan accordingly, or approve the use of the site as expanded. So good point, Rob. If it happens in the future, we'll be on it again. Okay, item number 5 on the agenda, one of my favorite current projects, the IBM Solar Canopy Project, and this is a public informational hearing. And is Ella Wynn here with us this evening? Or who do we have for the Mark? I'm sorry.
Yep.
Okay.
Hi, how are you? Mark Demurl with the EnerSolar team. Thank you for including us on today's agenda. I'm a project developer with EnerSolar, and I'm joined by a few additional colleagues from the EnerSolar team today as well, who've all worked together with IBM to develop this project at the IBM site. I'll just share the screen here.
And before you jump too far ahead, procedurally, Mark, I think I'd like to entertain a motion to open the public informational hearing. So if somebody would be so kind.
Motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Now we'll turn it over to you.
All right. Thank you, Chairman. Let me know when folks can see that.
Yep, first page.
All right, great. So thank you again for including us on today's call. I'm with the EnerSolar team who's been working with IBM to develop a solar parking canopy project at IBM's Watson facility. And sorry about that. So here's an overview of the solar parking canopy project. It's going to be being proposed for the main parking lot at the facility. The system size will be around 5.4 megawatts with production of over 6,363 megawatt hours per year. And you just see a few of the annual environmental benefits that the system will have, including the amount of CO2 offset per year, the equivalent number of autos that would be removed from the road, the equivalent number of seedlings grown for 10 years, and a few other kind of key environmental benefits that the system will have over the course of its operation. Now, looking at a few renderings of the system, this is a T structure, parking canopy system, excuse me, a Y structure. And we just have a few renderings here that show different views of what the system will look like from various parts of the IBM campus. We got one with the cars underneath. It's a view coming out of the IBM building. Here's an overhead view. And I'd also like to introduce Kim Fastnack with SSM, the civil engineering firm who's been helping us with this project. And I'd like to turn it over to her now to give a quick run through of our landscaping and tree plan for the site.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for having me. I'd just like to let everyone know that the existing parking structure that is on site, this is the entire canopy structure is going to be mostly over top of existing impervious surface. The areas that we are covering that are grass, there are a few islands that we will be removed. We have enlarged some of the end cap islands to accommodate that. So there is no net increase of impervious surface. I think that's important to understand in the overall development of this project. So for stormwater management, basically there's an existing infrastructure within the parking lot that includes a series of catch basins and piping. We are simply connecting into that existing infrastructure, and in where areas that the catch basins or piping needs to be upgraded, we will be providing those upgraded installs. But since this area is already impervious surface, there's no increase in the water rain or the rainfall that is coming to the stormwater system. In addition, we are removing 31 trees as a result of this installation, and we are proposing to install 120 tree replacement trees that vary in size from 1-inch caliper up to 4-inch caliper. And it would be a mixture of evergreen and deciduous trees, and they are positioned such that they would provide screening on the southern portion of the site as well as the western portion of the site. And they are all native species to New York.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Kim. I also want to give Art Taylor a chance to jump in and add any additional comments that he wanted to include here. Art's with the IBM team, or I'm sorry, with the IBM and EnerSolar team. Art?
Yeah, good evening, everybody. Thank you. I'm the project manager for EnerSolar. We're building the structure for IBM, and we've been working in partnership with them to develop our construction sequence and plan very extensively and in great detail with them. The drawing you see in front of you, we can use to just go briefly over our construction. The area you see, the giant oval there which is the main parking area, that is where the canopy structure is going to be built. As Kim mentioned, almost completely impervious surface. We're actually adding back in more pervious or permeable surface than is there now. So we won't be disturbing that overall aspect of the site. The project will be done in 3 construction phases. We will be excavating footings, basically digging holes throughout the parking lot, pouring concrete. We're drilling concrete caissons, then closing that all up, repairing the asphalt, and building the steel structure, I-beams, and then steel beams across the top. Then the third and final phase will be the electrical phase, where we'll come in and put on the solar panels and we'll do all the wiring. To the north, at the bottom of this drawing, you'll see a small, Mark, you can kind of circle with your cursor there, a small satellite parking lot down here where we'll be doing some parking and staging of material and unloading. And in between those 2 parking lots, you'll see what looks like a rectangle of a grassy area and a basketball court. Within that area is where our main electrical equipment is going to be, transformers, and where we convert our power to what's called medium voltage. So going to the right across there is where we're going to be connecting to poles that will be installed, and going down to the street where we'll be connecting to the utility. The project is a major construction project, and the duration we're estimating to be about 12 months. The construction will be normal business hours. There is a township noise ordinance, and we will be abiding by that. No construction activity before 7 a.m. And our construction will not be proceeding in the evenings up until when it's allowed via the ordinance. We will be stopping, even in the event of going a little beyond 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, never beyond 7 p.m. The traffic that will be entering and exiting the site, deliveries, material, will be coming in what we call the back entrance down to, I believe it's Pines Bridge Road. And from there, they will only be using any roads that are suitable for truck traffic and denoted as such. See if there's anything else I can give you for now, and we'll take questions obviously later. Let's deal with the construction equipment and what noise might be generated. So this will be normal construction for a facility of this type. There's going to be, during the excavation phase, there's obviously going to be excavators and concrete trucks that will generate noise during the day. We'll have machines moving material around the site daily. So there will be normal construction noise here. The site itself, or the facility itself, once built, will generate zero noise. So the only time there will be excess noise coming from this site will be during construction activity. And all of that will be within the realm of the township's noise ordinance. And we'll work closely with Yorktown on that issue. Let's see. As I said, these are going to be normal business-like work days. There is a site identified by IBM on the campus for what's called a washout, concrete washout, and that is an area that is set up just for this, for their construction activities on site. So everything's going to be heavily regulated and contained. There's not going to be any runoff of construction material And as Kim noted, there is a stormwater facility underground currently that will be upgraded, and that will contain all runoff, all stormwater runoff. There will be no additional stormwater generated by this site because we are not increasing the impervious surface. This will not affect the water table at all or the water quality because there's nothing that will be able to leave the site. And I think that's it for now, other than questions we might take from my part. But I do want to introduce Dennis Fair, who's part of the EnterSolar team and has also worked closely with IBM. And he's going to go over a few other aspects of the project.
Hi, folks. My name's Dennis Fair. The one aspect I'll speak to is just there was a question raised about who actually benefits from this project. And while the project is designed to primarily benefit IBM and its employees, the benefits actually extend to the larger community. I would say both in two terms. One is the general aspect of the overall environmental benefits of being able to provide renewable energy to the community in the larger sense, and being able to retire some of the brown generating plants that exist within the Hudson River Valley, and it being able to retire Indian Point. This is a big part of the state's plan to bring distributed generation down closer to the city where most of the capacity is used within the state. And this is the perfect kind of site that the state is hoping to develop, building upon existing parking lots and rooftops rather than building in greenfield facilities. And I would also say that an additional benefit to the community closest to IBM is that this facility exists on a substation, a nearby substation that Con Ed has identified as having particular capacity challenges. And so what this system will do is it will provide peak power to the network during the times when it's most needed, helping to provide greater stability and reliability to the grid. So overall, it is a benefit to the community, but primarily it's designed, again, as I said, for IBM and its employees. I'll pass it back to, I guess, Mark or maybe to Kim. I don't know who else is going to be speaking.
Thanks, Dennis. I think that's all we had for now, and I think we can open it up to questions.
Okay, let's go. We'll go with the board members first. Does anybody have any questions since our last review of this project?
I have none.
I have none.
None from me, John.
Okay. As I stated before, I think this is a terrific project, and we love to be part of the review process to have projects like this coming into town. And kudos to the team, the construction team, the design team, and to IBM themselves for being one of the first in our town to come before the board. We do have questions, and trying to find them now as we go through that have come to us. But Robin, if you want to open it up to the public while I look for those.
Sure. If anyone would like to comment, please raise your hand, or you can chat with me in the chat.
Okay.
Camille, would you like to speak?
Oh, there it is.
There you go.
Hello. Thank you very much. This is actually a really awesome project. I live on Barn Street, which is adjacent to the IBM property. And my concerns really are very much about noise. I actually live on the north sort of eastern side, which you wouldn't think would have a lot of noise, but it really does. So we hear all the trucks go by. We hear a lot of noise that comes from IBM, a lot from the air conditioning units and stuff. So I'm very concerned about noise, for one, and B, the impact on our environment. This is a really nice environment that I live in, and quiet, neighborly, and we love to see IBMers walking around our neighborhood and stuff. So I want to just keep that relationship with IBM. But a couple of my questions are, is any part of this dangerous? Like, is there a transformer that's going to go onto the property that is going to impact us in some way? And also, what about a wildlife study? Has there been any studies on the bird population? And I have heard that solar panels can attract birds to fly into them, kind of like your windows. So I'd like to pose that as well. So those are a couple of my questions. You guys have actually answered a lot of my other questions, which I sent prior. So thank you very much.
Okay, anybody on the team want to address that?
Yeah, I'll take a crack at a couple of those. This is Art Taylor again. I'm the project manager for Intersolar. Camille, we actually did review your questions before the meeting, and I tried to answer as many of them as I could. In fact, the whole team did. As far as noise goes, it's a construction project. There's unfortunately no way around having construction noise. The way we mitigate that is by operating within the hours that are dictated, and not just dictated by Yorktown. It's just standard construction hours. We don't intend to work into the evening. If we come to the case late in the project where we're trying to make up schedule, we might add some time here and there, but it will certainly not be into the evening hours where we would be disrupting people trying to sit outside, having a barbecue or anything like that. We're going to be good neighbors, and we're going to try to be as considerate as possible of the relationship that IBM has with their neighbors, as you described it. And we are happy to be transparent as we come closer to construction about how we're going to be operating in more detail. And during construction, I'll be available to talk to anybody that reaches out to IBM that has concerns as well. As far as dangers, there's going to be electrical equipment here, and there's no, I cannot tell you that electrical connections don't go bad or things of that nature. This is a very heavily regulated industry. We have standards. We have to follow the National Electrical Code for standards. The wiring is the same as there would be, very similar, let's say, to a building being built. There is going to be a transformer. That's how we move electricity from low voltage to high voltage or vice versa. That is brand new equipment. Once again, going to be heavily regulated. It's going to be inspected by the electrical inspector for Yorktown. And that equipment, as we showed earlier, is going to be in that triangular area in between the main parking area and the satellite parking area, towards the bottom of this drawing that's up right now. And it's going to be fenced. And I believe we're going to be adding landscaping around it. So it's not going to be near any facility. If something should go wrong, it's in an isolated area that can be easily accessed. And these systems, these solar systems, come with what we call shutdowns. And so at various places with the main electrical equipment and in the solar array itself, there are places where there are shutoff switches to make sure that emergency personnel can shut down the system, basically cutting off electricity to it, so that if there is an incident with a wire shorting or a piece of equipment malfunctioning, it can be quickly shut down. And there's really nowhere for any structures to be put in danger by it. There's going to be telephone poles, or what we call utility poles, going down to Pines Bridge with overhead wire, and there's going to be some trenching with underground wire. That's all fairly standard. You know, the same things you see along your street, the same kind of wiring and the same kind of equipment will be used. So it's all standard National Electrical Code, inspected by the town, inspected by the utility. And Con Edison has very high standards. So that's my best answer for danger. There's no, you know, radiation or anything other than electrical connections, wiring, and equipment going into this job. As far as wildlife, I think I'm going to toss that hot potato over to Dennis Fair and let him take a crack at that one.
Sure, I can take that. Hi, Camille. So as Art was saying, you know, and I think he's kind of overstated it. There's no danger from this equipment. It's, you know, during the construction time, everything will be handled the way what we call the IBM way. They have probably more extreme standards than any company we've ever worked with. So I think the team has taken a lot of steps to be sure that neighbors will be respected and that the project will be coordinated and done in complete safety. Once it's operating, there's absolutely no danger to anyone in the community or on site. And as far as wildlife, it will likely attract more birds than it will repel. It's a large surface that's above the ground where they can land. You know, we don't encourage nests to be built there, but I wouldn't be surprised if they do form some, just because it's a type of secure environment for them as well. So there's really, it's not like, you know, where you hear stories about large windmills that operate in migratory bird paths. Solar projects don't have any of that whatsoever. These are, the modules themselves are black and facing up towards the sky. It's not like the birds are not going to see them. They'll come down and land on it occasionally, but it should have no negative impact on the wildlife whatsoever.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're all set, Camille?
I have one more question for maybe Kim about the landscaping. She mentioned that there was like 131 trees going to be replanted.
Yeah, there's 31 trees being removed and 120 trees being planted.
Okay, I think that's awesome, and love to have a few more on the northeast side.
So we'll have to go back to IBM for that. These were the areas that they selected. We can talk to them about that. So this is actually shielded by the building, but we'll look at that and consider additional places.
Right. You would think that it's shielded by the building, but in some strange way, sound travels over the building and goes straight down the hill and down towards Shadeen. My house is right in the path of that. So, I have talked to the IBM people before, but there hasn't been a study about that. So I would love a few more trees in the way.
Okay.
Okay.
And you will have, you know, we do have a couple of other comments, but remember, Camille, this is the first public hearing. It's a public informational hearing to introduce the project. If you do have further concerns, certainly we welcome your comments anytime in writing to the board through the planning department, but also you will have another chance to speak at the public hearing itself sometime in the future.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate all the attention that you guys are giving to this project and the thoughtfulness.
Great. You're very welcome. Mr. Tom McLaughlin has a question for the team, the project team. What percentage of the solar power will benefit Yorktown residents?
I can answer that. Like I said earlier, the power will be used principally by IBM, with some of the benefit going to its employees. So some of the employees may live within the region, but It's not like a typical community solar project where the project is built to serve the larger community. This is an IBM project on IBM property.
Okay. Thank you. There was another question, but it was already answered by the team. So once again, we'll open it up to the public for any comments or questions, and board members as well. If you have since developed something that you think it would be a concern that the team can take into account as they move forward with this project, now is your time to speak. Okay. Anyone in the planning department? John Tegeter, any comments?
No comments at this time.
Okay. Counselor?
No comments from me, Mr. Chairman.
Very well. Well, if there are no other comments at this time, and we do welcome the public's comments in writing at any point during an application, I will entertain a motion to close the public informational hearing.
Motion. Second.
Okay, we have La Scala on the motion, the second on Garrigan. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. So the public informational hearing for the solar canopy project at IBM is now closed. We will move on to our second public informational hearing. Oddly enough, for a solar application as well. This is at the Hemlock Hills Farm to develop a solar farm. We have here representing the applicant, Beatty & Watson Engineering, Surveying and Engineering, excuse me. And this is a 1.9 megawatt solar farm on a portion of the 50-acre Hemlock Hill Farm property, the portion obviously that is in the town of Yorktown. The balance of the farm itself is in the neighboring town of Cortland. We did have a site walk on Saturday, which unfortunately I was not able to attend, but I did get out there today and walk the area of concern where it borders the existing trail system, because we did hear some early concerns about how that may impact our adjoining Hunter Brook Linear Park and the view from the trails in there, which we're lucky enough to be in partnership with Westchester Land Trust. A beautiful, beautiful area in there. I actually hiked all the way up, where the team started on Saturday, but I walked all the way up along the stream, up past the next subdivision where we do have a trailhead coming out into Foxtail Lane, and I think up to where we're hoping to have the trail continue into the Colangelo subdivision. But it is beautiful this time of year, as I'm sure it is all year round. So here for the applicant, Beatty & Watson Engineering. Oh, excuse me. Do I have a motion to open the public informational hearing?
Motion.
Okay, Aaron Bach, second by La Scala. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Okay, we'll hear from the development team.
Hi, good evening. Margaret McManus with Beatty & Watson.
Welcome back.
As you mentioned, we were out in the snow on Saturday. We had put balloons out, but we took them down, John, so I'm sure you didn't see them.
Correct.
I believe that there was the one that is at the crest of the hill was visible, but it's, I actually have a picture I can share.
That would be great. And I did hear from people that were out there that single balloon, I think that would probably be the northwest corner of the installation itself.
Well, let me see. Hold on, why I'm not getting the picture. Hold on. So, the trail basically comes along here. And I believe it was about here that we put a balloon like in the center. I think it was probably up here. And then it starts to run down. And as it runs down, there's a stone wall here and there's a hedgerow here of bushes on the other side of the stone wall. So as you go down the hill, you really can't see anything. But let me see. Just a second. I'm going to now share the picture. Hold on.
And of course, we're going to qualify the picture that you show us, Margaret, with the comment that this is in the leaf-off condition.
Yes, and as soon as there's leaves on, you won't see anything. I don't, I'm confident. I'm not sure it's not loading. Obviously, it's a little slow. So the solar farm is about 4 acres on the 50-acre site that's in Yorktown, but the site itself is actually 118 acres. And again, it's such a small portion of the site. And I don't know why it's not loading. I'm terribly sorry. Hold on.
I have seen other pictures, and Walt Daniels actually was kind enough to share some of his photos with the planning board members, Margaret, and
Oh, he did. Okay.
But you really can't find the balloon in the photos. I mean,
it's kind of hard to find the balloon in the photos because not only is it the distance,
right,
but there is a bunch of trees in the way,
right.
And once the leaf cover is on, I don't think you would see it. And then we discussed if you were to require us to put some evergreen screening, you would actually miss like the view of the farm, and you're really only going to see the side of the panels and maybe the tops of some of the panels, but the panels face south.
Mm-hmm.
And the view is we're going to be looking on the end of the panels, which is to the
generally west.
Yeah, from the west.
So this is the picture that I took that I shared with the board.
Oh, okay.
And I had this arrow because there is a minuscule green dot in there. That's where the balloon was, and that is Walt.
Yeah. And even Walt, admitted that it was difficult to see it in the photo, but there was this single balloon evidence.
And we put 9 balloons out. We put them on the corners and in the middle to sort of try and get a spread of where they would be.
Right.
So I personally would think that it's not a significant impact, nor would planting trees, be a benefit to the view because you would miss seeing any part of the farm.
Mm-hmm.
Which in and of itself
would
be nice to see in the distance.
Well, there are many other aspects of your application. If you'd be so kind to share them with the public at this time, that would be great. Brief description what you're about, and et cetera and so forth, that would be great.
So the similar to the other project, the only noise would be generated during construction, and then afterward it's passive. You don't hear any construction noise. There's no increased noises to the atmosphere. There is no stormwater impact because we are not placing any roadways in the area. The panels are being built within a wetland buffer that we are requesting a wetland permit for. But they are just pile driven, so there's no concrete pad underneath them. Once it's installed, we plan on putting pollinator seed underneath the panels so that we would attract bees to the area, hopefully. We know that single source, just grassed area is not as conducive to drawing the bees as pollinators are. So we are going to use that as a draw for the environment. There's not much else happening at the site. All entry to the site is off of Croton Avenue, which is in the town of Cortland. That's the only access point to the site.
Were you going to share the plan, Margaret?
Oh, sure. So this is the overall site. Again, this is the portion that's in Yorktown. This is the portion that's in the town of Cortland. The access is off of Croton Avenue. This is the 4 acres that will have the solar panels on it. Here is the project that shows the panels. All of the panels face towards the south. This is really just an overflow from this pond. None of this area is pristine wetland buffer area. There's a wall that separates this wetland from the field. There's a wall that separates this wetland from the field. It's been used as grazing for cattle, I believe. We're going to, keep this area open with a gap between the solar panels. And at one point there was a concrete pad going to be mounted here. That is no longer the case. We will be submitting updated plans, but there is a wire that needs to come up to where the transformers will be, and this is actually going to be driven. So there's not a trench opening. This is not going to be a disturbed area. It's going to be bore driven under the ground. And then there's 2 very small concrete pads here. And other than that, then everything goes up on poles. So because we are in the New York City watershed, I know that the DEP is going to ask that the runoff from these 2 little pads get recharged into something. So we'll look to put a little recharger here to accommodate that increase in impervious area. No trees are to be taken down for the project. So there's very little impact. Does anybody have any questions?
Hey, I do have a question from Brendan Murphy from the Westchester Land Trust, which I'll get to in a moment. Does anybody on the board have any questions before we open it up to the public?
Yes, I do.
Mm-hmm.
I was reading the letter that came in from the DEP dated December 15th. They raised a number of issues, some of which extend beyond the Yorktown property into the Cortland side of this project. And I was just wondering how that kind of review takes place. If we're a lead agency on the project, are we only limited to reviewing what's going on in the Yorktown side when DEP raised some issues about, on the other side of the town line? And I also think we need to consider those issues on even the ones that are on the Yorktown side. That's the second point. But my first point is how do we or do we treat issues raised on the other side of the town line?
Well, Cortland would be an involved agency if any of the construction on their side rises to an approval. They would be an involved agency. Otherwise, it would be a coordinated review. They would conduct their own review separately. So that's how that would work. And if they participate and accept this board as lead agency, since you have the largest impact, they would feed you the information that's pertinent to them. Okay. That would be their duty to do so under SECRA. And you would, on their behalf, really produce a SECRA record that would form the basis or part of the basis of their approval record as well. And if I've misstated anything, I hope Jim Glathar chimes in on it.
No, John, you spoke correctly. It is the board's obligation to consider the environmental impacts that they're notified of. And it's the board's obligation to sort of look over the fence and see what's on the other side. But it's a difficult situation when you have properties in two municipalities. Mostly your concern should be focused on where the majority of the impacts are. And if those are in Yorktown, then that should be your primary concern. If those are in Cortland, those are really more Cortland's concern.
Okay, thank you, gentlemen.
Anyone else?
I just want to say that I did receive a copy of that letter from the DEP and read over their comments. I don't think there's anything insurmountable in them. Everything would be addressed in the SWIP, which we would be putting together and submitting to the board. The only thing that they did was ask if we, they asked to have additional wetlands on the site flagged. Now, we don't think that we should have to flag 118 acres for a 4-acre area of disturbance. And again, this is not disturbance because it's actually being bored. So once we explain to them that this is not a trench, I don't see how any wetland in here needs to be delineated either. And this is already a disturbed area. There's parking here. So I believe that in a response to that letter, we can answer all of their comments.
Actually, that just raised another question in my mind. I think the last time I talked about the fact that Westchester County gave approvals for a land that was different than what's subject to this application. And I was wondering if you were able to address that or if it is a significant issue at all.
In regard to the easement placed on it previously, Aaron?
Westchester, I don't remember exactly, but John, I do know that when we saw last time a map from Westchester County or a letter referencing their approval on this agricultural property, it was for a different section of the property than what's before us right now. I don't know if we have to go back and get a reapproval from them or what.
I did talk to the county Dave, that wrote that letter, and he said that
Can't hear you.
the applicant should write another letter and just get that approved.
All right, we'll do that.
Good. Well, if I could jump in then with Brendan Murphy's concerns. Once again, Brendan Murphy from Westchester Land Trust. He has a bad connection, so he was not able to call in and speak, Margaret, but
Okay.
basically, he said that he had to put this into an email. I have comments/questions regarding the Hemlock Hills Farm Solar Farm project. Our Hunter Brook Preserve is adjacent and downhill to Hemlock Hill Farm, and the project site receives, and receives virtually all of the stormwater from the farm via 7 intermittent streams or gullies. A few of the streams coming off the farm have been eroded, which negatively impacts our hiking trails and pollutes the streams and wetlands, including the Hunter Brook itself. As such, my comments/questions are in regard to stormwater runoff and water quality. On sheet 1 of 3, I see water features like a stream on the south side and a pond to the west, both showing in blue. But there is another feature running east-west through the center of the project site labeled dry ditch. I believe that's what we're referring to in between the two portions of that installation. Is it called dry ditch because at the time the survey was developed, it was dry, or because it doesn't meet the definition of a stream? Question. This dry ditch does indeed run with water. It comes from the pond, actually, as you previously addressed, Margaret. And Westchester County classifies the ditch as a stream at the stone wall that is on the east side of the project site. Consideration should be given to reclassifying the dry ditch as a stream because it does have water and because the point at which Westchester calls it a stream is literally a few feet away. And that such a designation would perhaps allow the project design and management to better accommodate for downstream impact. Next bullet point, I understand that a stream that is within close proximity to or even within the solar field is going to be restored by the Watershed Agricultural Council. This is welcome news. Is this the stream that is on the south side of the project, or is it a different one? And I believe in our prior meeting, you did describe that as the stream on the south side of the project.
Yes,
correct?
this stream, yeah.
Good. He thanks you for the opportunity to provide comment on the project. So if you'd like to address the quote dry ditch stream first with anything you're prepared to say right now, that would be great. And to the second point, of course, that is the very stream that the Watershed Agricultural Council is going to improve, as you described in the previous meeting. Can you give us any clarification on that dry ditch quote?
So this ditch is I mean, sometimes it's called an intermittent stream because basically it's dry, except if this pond exceeds capacity and it overflows. I know that there's additional wetlands over here that they may not be fed by this stream, but this stream may contribute to them. If there's, there's hydric soils here. So this could just be a spring that comes up and continues with the stream that's downhill from this. But this water does not run in this ditch continually. This, on the other hand, does have water in it. And like Robin said, the only information we have right now is an orange line that says they're going to do something to it. So I will reach out to them tomorrow too to find out if they've developed plans for the mitigation of this stream. It's my understanding that they want to widen this stream to slow down the water so that the water will take a longer time and go through more of a wetland and less of a defined ditch so that there'll be more phosphorus removal. And when we were out in the field, I believe his name is Brian from the Land Trust.
Brendan.
Brendan, sorry. And he did say that where this runs off of the farm site, is, eroded because evidently it's concentrating more than it had in the past because I guess parts of some trees were taken down on the farm, which it's a working farm. That's going to happen from time to time. But that won't be impacted by the addition of the solar panels. We'll follow the guidelines from the New York State DEC, which we have copies of them. It's not considered an impervious area because the area underneath is pervious.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we're not changing the cover characteristics. We're not changing the flow characteristics of the runoff of the water.
I did not hike up today to the edge of the property, but my recollection is, and your plan does show, a stone wall on the eastern edge of that field between the preserve and the solar installation, right?
There's a stone wall here, and then I believe there is a stone wall along the back property line too.
That's what I'm saying. So, and I don't know, on the lower part of your plan there that shows, yeah, there you go. I guess there is a single point of discharge for that dry creek / intermittent stream where it passes through the stone wall.
Right, and actually I believe it is this area that they're talking about, that there's
right.
additional erosion happening. And you can see that there's, 1, 2, 3, 4 little streamlets that all catch up to each other. And, but
right.
I would consider that an existing condition, and that our project is not going to exacerbate that.
Right. Okay, well, if Brendan has further concerns, I'm sure we'll hear from him in the future on behalf of the Land Trust. Anybody else? I didn't see any other comments. I did see, one other, same gentleman who commented on the last project. What percentage would the town of Yorktown residents benefit from this installation?
This is actually one of the solar farms that will be directly connected into the grid. So if you're a resident in the town of Yorktown and you buy into any of those plans that let you be part of the solar farm, then you would directly benefit in it. So.
Terrific. Very good. Robin, did you see any other comments come in or questions, concerns?
I do not.
Okay.
If anyone does want to speak, they just need to hit the raise hand button or *9 on your phone.
I see somebody with a thumbs up. Oh, it's gone.
Any comments from staff? Any concerns? Mr. Tegeter?
We don't have any comments at this time.
Counselor?
No comments, Mr. Chairman.
We have a question. I don't have that comment. It's Susan Siegel. I have a Hemlock question. So Mr. McLaughlin's question was answered about the benefit to the Yorktown residents.
Yeah.
Very good. All right. I don't see any other comments at this time. We will be reviewing this project through the course of the application and its development. And of course, we'll have another opportunity at the public hearing, but we welcome written comment at any time on the application or any concerns that the public may have. Do I have a motion to close the public informational hearing?
Motion.
Second.
La Scala, Garrigan. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, the public informational hearing for the Hemlock Hills Farm Solar Farm has now been closed. Thank you once again, Margaret, and we look forward to working with you as the plan develops.
I have just one question. Should I reach out to the Town of Cortland Planning Department to find out if they have any standing for the two little pads that are going to be happening on the Cortland site?
I would, as a matter of course.
Okay.
I think that we circulated for lead agency, and I don't think that they objected to anything.
I'll just call Chris.
But I would just make sure so that it's handled properly in any event.
Yep. And do we have to go back to the Conservation Board, or are we done with them, or are they waiting to hear from us again to make comment to this board?
It's possible that you'll need to go back to them depending on how things develop. There was some question raised about, intermittent streams and the other stream and some issues. So as that develops, it may be a possibility you need to go back to them. So.
All right. Thank you very much.
Before we leave this, I see a chat message from Susan Siegel.
Right, with the board's permission, I'll entertain a motion to open the public informational hearing again, just so we procedurally have this
moved.
record. Okay, a second?
Second.
Okay, Bach and Garrigan, and we're back open again. So Susan Siegel has a question. I think we had some difficulty with technology. Looked like a private question at first, and then now it was posed to everyone, and now it's private again. So, Susan.
Hi there. Thank you for reopening. I don't know why my messages didn't get across. I wanted to follow up. Basically, my question had to do with the issue that Aaron raised about the county original letter back, I think, at the previous meeting, and the misidentification of the parcel. And I thought at that last meeting when Aaron brought this up, that the planning department was going to contact the county to get the clarification. So was that request sent to the county? And did we not hear back from them officially? I know Margaret sort of answered that she had had a conversation with somebody at the county, but I think the planning board needs an official response from the county just to clarify that issue.
Right, so it was Robin who said she had contacted the county, and the county asked that we resubmit a letter, which I will do, and in due course we'll hear back from them.
Okay, thanks. I mean, because the county holds this conservation easement based on a transfer of development rights that was done in 2011, and that's why they have to. They were part of that agreement.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Susan. Okay, gents, at the risk of sounding ridiculous, do I have a motion to close the public informational hearing?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
Okay, La Scala and Bach, thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, and thank you to everyone, Susan and Mr. McLaughlin and everyone that commented, Brendan. We'll move forward with that application, and as it develops, you'll see us again.
Thank you, and enjoy the holidays.
Thank you, Margaret. Good to see you again.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Okay, item number 7 on the agenda, Yorktown Energy Storage Tier 2 Battery Storage System. This is a public hearing. This is an application for a battery storage facility at 3901 Gomer Court, Jefferson Valley, at the north end of town. Do I have a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved.
And who's got the second on that?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we have here Melissa. I don't know who's going to speak first. So we have as a contact Melissa. So Mel, I'm going to give it to you first, and you can invite the team members as you wish.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Nice to see you all again. So yes, thanks for the introduction. I do tonight have with me Rob Gaudioso, our legal representation, and Mike Conway, our electrical engineer and project developer for the project. And Rob, I will hand it over to you to start.
Thank you, Mel. Good evening, Acting Chairman and members of the board. Robert Gaudioso with the law firm of Snyder and Snyder on behalf of the applicant. As you know, last month at the informational meeting, the board was kind enough to set the public hearing. We did repost the property. We also sent out the public notices and proof of such we did submit. Mel also has been working with ACABA and did submit a revised set of plans, modifying and increasing the extensive landscaping that we discussed last month. And in a moment, I'd ask Mel to walk through the site plan and also submitted a report and an outline regarding the secondary containment that I think we discussed a bit last month. Mr. Acting Chairman, because it is the public hearing, would it be helpful if Mel walked through the facility and the site plan?
That would be terrific. Thank you.
Great.
Okay, so I will share my screen and let me know if anything is in the way. So first, I'll start with this is Tier 2 energy storage or battery storage facility at 3901 Gomer Court, which is in the northern part of Yorktown. And it is on an existing 2.5 acre lot in a zoned office lot. It does abut Route 6 to the south. Gomer Court comes here, and then East Main Street is to the north. There is an existing auto body store shop on the site already. And then where we're proposing the site is in the back part of the property. And I know some people have seen this site plan several times, but for the benefit of the public hearing, what we are proposing is a 5 energy storage containers that encompass approximately 14,700 square feet of the site, which meets the threshold of the 15% lot coverage for the site. So for this, that is the governing factor rather than the 33,000 square feet as outlined in the energy storage legislation that was passed. And we'll have, as I said, we'll have the 5 containers, the associated electrical equipment, which you can see here, which is all underground until we get to a utility-owned pole, riser pole, which then goes out to the point of interconnection along East Main Street. And then also in accordance with the law, we do have a 7-foot chain link fence. It is transparent all the way through. That was a request from the Fire Protection Bureau. And at the request of the Planning Board and ABCA and the Conservation Board, we do have several plantings in clusters around the site. Starting at the north, we have 5 taller evergreen trees. And then to the southeast, we have another cluster of 5. To the south of this facility, we have another cluster of 3 evergreens and 3 smaller evergreen shrubs. And then in the southwestern portion of the property, we have some more wetland-friendly vegetation, which are being proposed to provide screening from Route 6 as you're going west to east. That's really the one line of sight that we identified would be the most, would be where the facility would be seen the most. And also we are in this wetland buffer here. So we provided some wetland-friendly vegetation to provide some mitigation to the buffer and also block off access because there is a bit of a little embankment here that leads down to the back of the site, of this other property, excuse me. And then to Osceola Lake, which is over here in the southwestern portion of the greater property here. All of the vegetation is 20 feet off of the fence line, so that's a requirement of the past legislation. And we are also in accordance with all of the setbacks and height requirements. And as for lighting, there's just one motion censored light on the containers, just for if anyone needs to access the site when it's dark out. But other than that, there's no like stadium lighting or anything around the site. So it'll pretty much stay the same character as the existing site as it is. And then finally, I will just show the new exhibit that we had made. This really just shows the plantings when they first are installed. And we just updated this to show the updated fence line and then the new clusters that have just been moved 20 feet off of the fence line.
Nice, and I think you addressed in past review of this application, Mel, the directional visibility, which has now been screened, east and west on Route 6 there?
Yes.
Okay. Do you want to offer any comments in that regard?
Yeah, so if you're looking at this picture here, coming west to east, traveling westbound is to the top of the screen here. And really that line of sight that we've identified is through here. So these plantings that we've proposed, there's taller ones in the front, and then they get a little bit smaller as you go into the site. Those are the ones that we've proposed to block that view. And then there is, as you can see here, a bit of a gap in the tree line. Just there's no leaves on these trees. And I think we chose this picture because it does show the no leaf version of the site, in the winter time. So that's why these trees are also provided here to block any of the views into the site from Route 6. And then also just, as you're, thinking about the sight lines, Route 6 is, I think, a 55-mile-per-hour road. So you're really, driving by the site for a few seconds at most.
Right. Great. Thank you for that.
And then, sorry, I was just going to say, Mike or Rob, if you have anything to add, feel free to jump in here.
No, the only other thing I would add is that Aqaba did sign off. We did receive their letter today. No further comments based on these most recent changes. As you know, we also agreed with the CAC to clean up, particularly in the back portion of the property, and remove the invasive vines and the location shown on the site plan as further mitigation to help improve the property. As Mel mentioned, we do meet all the setbacks. We do meet the height requirement. We also meet the lot size requirement and the lot coverage requirement under the new battery storage legislation that was passed. And finally, the county did submit its recommendation. I believe it was a local determination. I believe that was back in October.
Great. Does Mike have any comments before we move to the public?
Not at this time. Thank you.
Okay. I'm sorry. A little jumping the gun there. Anybody from the board have any comments on the application?
Yes, I do.
Great.
I just want to state that there was a concern raised at our last meeting about containment, and I appreciate the response of the applicant in covering that question and clarifying the information contained in the material safety data sheets and so forth on the fuels that are in the battery compartments, and how one of the concerns had nothing to do with the operation on site, but had to do with transporting the materials by manufacturers before they're even installed. So I appreciate the clarification, and I want to just state for the record that I think this applicant has been very responsive to our concerns and very successfully having met them.
Thank you.
Great. Anybody else? Can we open it up to the public at this time? If you have comments or questions, just raise your hand by clicking.
Susan already asked to speak, and then we can go to Jay.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm looking now.
All right, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. My question really is not a land use question. It involves a financial question. And so I'm going to ask this board, I'll explain the issue, but, and it's a financial issue relating to the battery storage facilities that the town board has to act on. And so I'm going to ask, and I hope that the planning board would delay its approval until the planning board acts on this. Let me explain.
Is that correct?
Yes, let me explain further. There is a section 487 of the state real property law allows the owners of property where there are battery storage facilities or also solar farms to get a 15-year tax abatement. And the way the law is written, it becomes basically automatic once the project is approved and it meets all the state criteria, and I'm certain that this project meets all those criteria. The property owner just has to file the application with the assessor, and it's automatically accepted. I'm sorry, but I don't know what the abatement is at this point. I just know it's for 15 years. The town has the option to opt out of this, and many towns across the state have opted out of it. And those towns are on the state website. Alternately, if the town does not opt out, it could request a pilot agreement be negotiated with the developer. Now here, I don't know the terms of who is owning this land, if Yorktown Energy is just leasing it or if they're owning the property. Clearly, it's the property owner who's paying the taxes. But that's a financial arrangement which we don't know. And if Yorktown Energy is just leasing it, maybe the fact that the property owner is going to get some abatement involves the terms of the lease. The town board has been made aware of this, and Supervisor Slater said that he, quote, has to, quote, educate the board about this. Ed, if you're listening, you heard me make this, raise this issue at the last town board meeting. And I urged the town board to make a decision on this, whether they wanted to opt out or not, as soon as possible, because the Yorktown Energy proposal was very close to getting approval, because I think, as Aaron said, the applicant has been very responsive in meeting all of the concerns that your board has had. But if you were to approve this, let's say at your first meeting in January, and then he got his approval, then if the town board decided to opt out of this abatement at the end of January, we would have, the applicant will qualify for the abatement. And this is a taxpayer issue, and I think the town board has to review it. And I know that's not the planning board's concern, but I would ask you to urge the town board to act quickly on this. It's pretty much of a cut and dry issue. As they say, they could, if they don't want to opt out, they just have to negotiate a pilot. If you remember, a pilot was one of the features in the early solar law legislation. And I think it got dropped out of that legislation. And there's no mention of pilot in the battery storage. So again, even though finance is not your job, I would urge you, because this has an impact on the taxpayers, and I can't quantify that impact for this project. And I feel bad for the applicant who would like to proceed with this, but that's why the town board should act quickly on this. And I ask you to wait with your approval so that the town board could say this law becomes this law, and it's not even a local law. They could do it by resolution, so they could do it quickly. They don't have to advertise and go through all the procedures for a local law. But the resolution could clearly say this law is effective, okay, and we are opting out to anything that hasn't been approved as of the date of this resolution. And this doesn't affect all the positives of this project for energy conservation and renewable energy and all of the benefits that this project, will have to offer. So.
Well, thank you.
I gotta agree with you. Thank you for that information.
Yes.
The landowner is probably getting rent from the tenant, from the battery storage unit. So why should he go home free?
That's right. And whatever it is, if it's $2,000 a year, $5,000 a year, I don't know, but that's money that this town needs and could certainly use. And and it doesn't hurt the project. The project is already getting all kinds of financing benefits from NYSERDA. There are federal tax benefits. I don't think the Yorktown taxpayers need to.
As usual, all that stuff falls on the ratepayer and on the town taxpayer.
Yeah, and I don't think that it is. And as you say, it's not something that has come up, and it was only fairly recently that I discovered this law, and I don't think the town board even knew about it.
Oh.
So,
Mr. Chairman, if we just respond, we think it's a good point. It's actually, though, nothing new. We've already reached out to the town and offered to negotiate a pilot agreement. And I do agree with Ms. Siegel. This is not a land use issue. This is an issue between the applicant and the town board. We do lease the property. We don't own it. And we've actually already reached out to the town to negotiate a pilot agreement.
I'm glad to hear that. So that I don't know.
Just pursuant to that, we have an internal meeting on Monday on this very subject, and we have spoken with the applicant. The applicant, as he just said, is aware of it, and we have determined that once we have our internal meeting, we will conduct a meeting with the applicant to get this issue on the right track and taken care of.
Yeah, and
internal meeting is with who, John? Is this an internal meeting with the assessor and with the supervisor?
It's an internal meeting with the appropriate staff in the town.
Okay, thank you. And thank you, Mr. Applicant. I'm sorry, I'm going to mispronounce your name.
Odioso, thank you.
Okay.
I think Mr. Conway had something to add.
Would the pilot agreement have to be approved by the town board before the planning board gave it?
Susan, I don't mean to cut you off. I think the board hears your concerns, and we certainly appreciate bringing this up because it's something that certainly I was not aware of, and we're going to leave it to the appropriate staff and our council and the town's council and the town board to deal with this before we go through with an approval. And I would ask the staff to make sure that with future applications, both for battery storage and solar installations, that we exhaust all of these conversations prior to granting an approval. And if you would be so kind as to bring it to our attention, John and Robin and members of the staff and Jim, if there's something we need to be aware of.
May I interrupt you, John?
Yes, of course.
The question that Susan is raising is whether we need to defer any action on this project because of the application of the tax laws governing pilot agreements. I read the law over the weekend, and I don't know if we need to hold up what we're doing because what the town is doing.
Mm-hmm.
Jim, maybe you could weigh in on this, but
I was going to weigh in on this, Aaron. You actually can't delay action on the project because there are time limits under the town law pursuant to which you have to act. And the result of not acting within those time limits is a default approval. However, the pilot agreements are always negotiated after the approvals are given. In fact, a copy of the approval is necessary for the applicant to submit in order to get the pilot. So my recommendation is that you proceed in the normal course with the zoning review and that the town staff work with the applicant on the pilot application.
Thanks for clarifying that, Jim. The other procedural detail that I was going to add to this is that it's correct. the town's ability to opt out is not contingent upon or directly connected to this board's approval. It's connected to our, as the applicants, notification of the town of our intent to construct, and the town responding within a certain window to that intent to construct. As a matter of detail on this, the requisite period for the town to respond has lapsed from that notification. So the town is technically defaulting to not being able to opt out. However, we're still going to pursue a pilot with the town despite that, because we believe it's the right way to approach the assessment of this project.
And when did you give the 60-day notice?
Ooh, July.
Oh, okay.
It was during the moratorium.
But I do agree with Jim, and we have no objection, to a condition that we are proceeding with the pilot.
Of course.
Thank you once again, everyone. Jay Kopstein, did you have something that you wanted to speak about?
I did, sir.
Okay.
And good evening.
Good evening.
Mel explained in the diagram how the project was going to be connected to the grid. The question I have is, there going to be a transformer or substation on the site? If so, where? There was a building marked energy storage equipment area, and what's going to be in there? And is there anything going to be in there that's going to require fire protection, sprinklers, probably dry sprinklers if there were any? And the last item was, on a diagram that looked like 6 or 7 smaller buildings off to the side of the battery buildings. What were those for? Thank you.
Sure.
Okay.
Let me share my screen again.
Sure. Mel, while you're pulling that up, I'll describe the transformer / substation question. Because of the interconnection voltage on this project being relatively low on the medium voltage spectrum, there's no sort of full substation required for this. We will be using 2 separate transformers to step up to the voltage at which we connect to Con Ed system. Those are 2 of the boxes that are included in the what's termed the energy storage equipment area. And you sort of, as you were describing on the aerial view, those smaller cubes that are sort of shown in the rendering that are outside of the energy storage containers, those would be the transformers. So each one of those transformers is about 2,500 kVA. There's 2 of them totaling 5 megawatts of the system. And then they run up to Con Ed system to connect at medium voltage.
All right. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to wrap that up by addressing the other part of the question was, so those are sort of standard issue pad mounted medium voltage transformers, and therefore wouldn't have any additional fire protection or sprinklers or anything ancillary to the transformer.
All right. Why aren't they marked on the drawing, or at least I can't see them if they are because I'm looking at a small screen? First. Secondly, are they going to be on the same concrete pad? If so, is the pad going to be marked the way Con Ed marks its own pads, showing where it's safe to be and where it's unsafe to be?
The transformers will be customer owned. They won't be owned by Con Ed, so they won't necessarily have the same the same exact nomenclature that Con Ed would use, though they will include the same warnings and labels pursuant to NFPA and the National Electric Code. So they'll have, arc flash labels informing what type of personal protective equipment people need to be wearing to service the equipment, things like that. The labeling on the drawing, not sure if we don't have that specifically on there. On the layout, I'm sure it's on the single line drawings that were included in the package that specifically call out the transformers. Yep, those right there.
Yeah, all right. Now, yeah, they're not on the other drawing. I can see them there. I would ask for you to just consider marking on the concrete pad in the same color scheme that Con Ed uses, where it's safe to stand when the transformers are either activated or believed to be activated, or until they're certified as not being activated.
Does Con Ed mark that on the ground on the pad, or is it a label that goes on the transformer that you would then read?
Well, my experience with Con Ed, and in the interest of fairness, I was the NYPD liaison to Con Ed, and I worked on a lot of their projects as well as NYPA projects. And on the concrete itself, they marked in yellow where police or fire emergency responders could actually be until the site was certified as being off. And in some cases, red, where it would absolutely not to be under any circumstances until the site was determined to be deactivated. Just something for your consideration. Yeah, it's not required by code, I don't believe. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks, Jay. Anybody else, Robin? Do we have anyone waving at you or dialing in?
I just had Christine's question in the chat.
Okay, is that, I wasn't sure if that came in on this application. So,
Yes, yes, she's asking if inspections would be done more frequently only because it's a residential area.
right. It is kind of a mixed area, this being obviously in a commercially zoned portion, but they're asking, she is specifically asking for semi-annual inspections for a little more peace of mind, as this is a relatively new type of application in a residential area. I really don't know what the protocol is on that type of thing, and I'll defer to the professionals in that regard. But if staff has any input, please feel free. Again, this is a new type of application to us as well as a board. So,
Mr. Chairman, we do appreciate the question, and I think that the code was specifically adopted based on the NYSERDA model. We do, the New York State Building Code was updated. The proposal does have the inspections as required by the code, and this is very distant from residences. It's on a commercial property. It's adjacent to commercial properties. It's adjacent to Route 6. It does meet all the setbacks and the lot size requirement by a wide margin. So we are committed, though, to following all the inspections as required by the town's code, which is based on the New York State Building Code and the NYSERDA model.
Okay. Anyone else?
I'll just add in response to the commenter here that regardless of what the town decides to do here, as a operations and maintenance provider for the system, we'll certainly be out there more than once a year providing preventative maintenance on the system and generally keeping up with its maintenance. So whatever the frequency of formal inspections will be, we will be out there more frequently than that.
Terrific. Great. Christine, I hope that answers your question.
Well, can we then require a more frequent, a twice annual inspection as requested by that speaker, if the applicant's willing to do it?
I mean, I suppose we could vote on it. It's if the applicant is willing to do it, that's fine. As long as they're conforming to the code, not to disagree with anyone, but I don't see it as a predominantly residential area. To the representative, the applicant, I kind of agree. It's more of a commercial area, And if it's on the same site as an auto body shop, and next door to a large, I'm not sure what the actual use is next door with a lot of trucks and contractor equipment, et cetera, and so forth, it seems to be somewhat removed from residences, frankly. So I don't know that we would, if the applicant agrees to it, I'm more than happy to have it happen. But if they're not volunteering it, then I can't see us imposing it in any way that would be reasonable.
John, or maybe John Tegeter, who is the inspecting body here? Who's responsible to perform these inspections?
Well, I believe it's the operator.
And they provide a report back to the town that they're in compliance, kind of a self-certifying type of scenario?
Correct.
Yeah, so the proposal has a utility maintenance agreement required as part of the condition of approval. So there's a full agreement that has all the specifics to that as part of the condition of approval.
Would the, we may as well ask the question, right, Aaron? I mean, that's what.
All I was asking.
Yeah.
I think Mike's point was well taken, but I think for purposes of the code and following the code and the condition of approval and the utility maintenance agreement, I think that's the right way to document it. I think to Mike's point is that nevertheless, there will be other standard routine maintenance out there. And we did meet with the fire board and we did come up with, changes that they requested and make sure that they were satisfied with the, with the project the way it is and based on, those requirements of the code. So I don't think we necessarily, I think it is a bit of, overkill, so to speak, for semi-annual as opposed to what the code requires and the maintenance agreement will require.
Any other comments for the public hearing? Staff? Council?
Anyway. Nothing else from me, Mr. Chairman.
What'd you say, Robin?
I would note that I did drive past this on Saturday, and leaf off, you can see the entire yard. I'm not sure what we would do about that because of the slope down to the stream and the wetland area. But you can see right across from East Main Street.
East Main Street.
From East Main Street or Route 6?
No, East Main Street.
East Main Street?
6N.
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 Across the other property right into here.
So you're talking if you're traveling generally eastbound, east, northeast, or something like that on 6N, looking up into the property?
Yes, I was going north.
Okay.
I was going home.
Okay, so maybe we should be discussing with the applicant the possibility of screening in that direction as well. I know that we do have that slope.
Yeah, so we have two things. We have one area that the fire board did ask us to leave as a clear view, which we did, and then we have the other area where we did add the significantly tall landscaping. Mel, if you'd like to maybe show that on the north end of the compound.
Yeah, there is that cluster of 5 trees I think she described earlier.
Correct, in this area, in that area there. The area, where the property's catty cornered across the street from there, I believe that's the Shell station. That's the gasoline station.
Right. I think what Robin's talking about, though, is where it's labeled East Main Street in the lower right-hand portion of that screen, looking up the hill, leaf-off condition, there will be virtually no screening, right?
Yeah, I think our concern there would be we'd probably have to take trees out to plant trees in that area.
Well, you could plant some shrubbery since you're going in an uphill condition. You can plant some shrubbery that grows, 10 feet or so or 12 feet, typically near the outside of the fence. That would take care of that situation.
So I think, Mel, correct me if I'm wrong, what's the setback from the fence for the shrubs?
It's 20 feet. So
I don't know if is it 20 feet from the fence or 20 feet from the equipment?
20 feet from the fence is how the law reads.
So if you see in that area, Mel has the 5 to the north, right up against the tree line.
Yeah, and then this is where the existing tree line starts.
So that's not 20 feet from the fence, though. Why don't we take a look at that section of the law together?
Okay. Yeah.
I just want to be clear on that, but and then I guess my suggestion is that we just take another look at that. And I'm not saying this will hold up any approval, because the procedure here is you get an approval, and then any conditions that are in the approving resolution, you modify your drawings to that, and then those drawings are signed by the chairman. That becomes record approval. In the interim, between those 2 points, in worst case scenario, we can, there can be a requirement to submit a landscaping plan to the satisfaction that manages the screening appropriately. So that's one way to do it.
I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and to the extent that the board, approves this in the first meeting in January, let's say we still have that additional time to whichever scenario happens. I think we can get out there and take a look at it.
Great. Thank you for that input, Robin and Joan. And we look forward to continuing to work with you. Anybody else? Do you see any other hands, Robin? Anybody dialing in?
No.
Okay, then I will entertain a motion to close the public hearing for the Yorktown Energy Storage Tier 2 battery storage system.
Motion.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? So moved, and so closes the public hearing. Thank you all.
Mr. Acting Chairman, would it be possible to act on the resolution this evening, subject to the additional condition that was discussed by Mr. Tegeter?
John, can we qualify that resolution with the language that a landscaping plan to the satisfaction of the staff or the board would?
Yeah, it can be to the satisfaction of the board.
Okay.
And the other thing I would add is, if it's not already in there, that the equipment storage that is currently happening on site is not allowed unless, and you can put in there that they would need to come to apply for a permit for an exterior storage yard if they want to store things. And the point is that in that case, you would be able to be certain to do a layout in which the emergency access is preserved.
Right.
Okay, that's the whole point here.
So that no outdoor storage of equipment or vehicles unless it's on an approved plan.
Correct.
That's going to be added. The additional requirements already says that there shall be all non-permitted uses shall be stopped and removed.
That's fine.
From the site.
Could we just maybe just cover both ends of that? The non-permitted uses shall be removed, or as John suggested, application made to legalize same, or something like that.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. With those proposed changes to the resolution, does anybody on the board have anything else to add? Any language, any concerns? To speak now. Okay, before us we have the resolution to approve the Yorktown Energy Storage Tier 2 battery storage system.
John, we got to do the neg deck first.
Oh, good point, Aaron. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I have a feeling that you would have pointed that out yourself, Robert.
I knew Mr. Bach would beat me to the punch.
Do I have a motion?
No, lead agency, neg deck.
Lead agency. I got that part as soon as it was mentioned. Do I have a motion to declare the planning board as the lead agency in this application?
Motion.
Second.
application. Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. And do I have a motion for a negative declaration on the project as proposed?
Motion.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And now before us, we have a resolution to approve the application for the Yorktown Energy Storage Tier 2 battery storage system with language as we have previously discussed and to be detailed by planning staff. Do I have a motion?
Hold on a minute. It wasn't a public hearing? Do we have to close the public, and where did the resolution come from?
I think the hearing just was closed a couple
The hearing
minutes
was
ago.
closed. Correct.
Yeah, I believe it
Closed
was.
that already.
When was it closed?
About 5 minutes ago, 3 minutes ago.
All right.
And at which point, the counsel for the applicant requested that we consider approving the project after we close the public hearing.
Yeah, I'm good with that, but I heard you say there was a resolution before us.
That is correct, in the packet that you received.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Yep, sure. Do you have any questions about that, Bill, before we go any further?
No.
Okay. So as amended with the language that is going to be ironed out by the staff, and the review of the, well, actually, that other step, John, can come later with the landscape plan, right? That the landscape plan to the satisfaction of the board.
Right.
Okay, so as amended with those two items in particular, do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Congratulations, team.
Thank you very much to both the board and the staff. We appreciate the time and effort, and we think the project came out much better based on all the input. So thank you.
That was great. Thank you for working with us.
Have a good evening. Happy holidays. Merry
Thanks,
Christmas.
everyone. Take care.
Take care. Okay, we're not done yet, folks. Item 8 on the agenda, we have a public hearing for New York Self-Storage in Jefferson Valley. This is on Bank Road, 621 Bank Road, the former Toys R Us building. And we have Dawn McKenzie here for the applicant. I entertain a motion to open the public hearing.
Motion.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, Dawn, you're up.
Okay, let me share my screen first,
Great.
please. There we go. Thank you, Robin. Okay, can you see the site plan up on there?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. So here tonight representing Columbia Pacific, the applicant on their New York self-storage project in Jefferson Valley at 621 Bank Road. This is the former Toys R Us site. It is located on the north side of Route 6. Here is Route 6 on the bottom of the sheet. And then Bank Road up on the top. It is accessed from Lee Boulevard, which is further to the west, wraps around here. So this is located 3.6 acres in the C1 zone, just to give a general overview of the project for the public. And the applicant is seeking site plan approval, special permit for self-storage and the required environmental permits for the project. So they're looking to retrofit the existing Toys R Us building and as a self-storage center. And the project involves two new one-story additions to the building. So there'll be one addition proposed on the west side of the building and another addition proposed on the east side of the building. Also part of the project, at the front of the building, there'll be a covered entrance. This is the main entrance to the building, will be at the front of the building facing Bank Road. And there'll be a covered entrance here with some loading spaces provided in this location and some handicap parking. There'll be parking along the front of the site at Bank Road. And these are actually same location where there is existing parking at the front of the site now. And most of the pavement you see around the building is going to be maintained from the existing use. One other change to the site that is proposed is there's currently an existing curb cut and entrance in this location right here, further to the east, and the project proposes to relocate that further east to this location because of the grade differential in that location. We're going to be replacing some of the pavement in that area. And then they also intend to maintain some of the parking spaces on the east side of the building. Now, some changes that have happened to the project since we met with the board at the last meeting during the public informational hearing. I just want to relay them out in the submittal letter, but I just want to run through them quickly with the board. So at the front of the building, this addition right here has been recessed back 6 feet further this way. So it used to be out a little bit further and it has been set back. And another thing that has changed is because we have refined this, we've made some modifications, and some of the overhead doors or exterior access units, the exterior access doors have been eliminated from this location. And another thing that we have done is this portion of the facade right here has been recessed back by, let's see, I've got a number here. I don't remember how far, but just like, believe it's 3 feet to maintain this existing curb cut and keep the existing trees in this area and still provide 24-foot drive aisle in this location. And let's see, those are really the main changes to the site plan since we were last before the board at the public informational hearing. And just to give the public an idea of what we've worked with the board to accomplish before I pass the building discussion over to the architect, just wanted to mention that there is a lot of mature evergreen and deciduous landscaping around the building. You can see some of that in this location and some of that over here on the west. There's also some existing deciduous trees along the front of the site, and there's some existing evergreens along the east side as well, and then a lot of mature vegetation on the south side. You'll see better when we show the elevations. Architect Jared Kuhn shows the elevations that there's the trees on this side needed some supplemental landscaping, which we have filled in on the southern side to soften the facade of the building from that side. But at the request of the planning board, we've also provided some additional evergreens in this location at the southwest corner. I think that generally gives you an overview of the site. One of the things the board had requested us to provide is a close-up of the front area, just so you can get an idea. We were also proposing plant beds along the front of the building facing Bank Road, at the front of the eastern addition and at the front of the western addition. And you can see at these corners, there are little wing walls proposed, which were also provided on the east side and on the west side, and actually at the southerly corners as well, to provide some additional screening of the overhead doors when viewed from Bank Road and from Route 6. I think at this point I could probably turn this over to Jared if he's available. I can release the screen if he wants to talk through the building a little bit. If that's necessary.
Good evening. I'm Jared Kuhn with Hanlon Architects, representing the applicant.
Yeah, let me stop my share here. There you go.
Okay. So this is the rendering shown from Bank Street there. And so this would be the north elevation. Down here would be the west side. So this would be the main entry on the site plan that Don was showing. And coming through, this is the existing, I guess, storefront or entrance for Toys R Us. We'd be utilizing that area for the main entrance for any patrons for that. The one-story addition is shown in this front area here, with this coping line here. And then and beyond that, the higher portion would be the existing building. Existing conditions would be painted. The one-story addition has a horizontal insulated metal panel applied, and and some concerns early on were the visibility of the overhead doors for the exterior access. As Don was mentioning, we provided a wing wall here and some supplemental landscaping to kind of conceal the view of that overhead door portion. Switching to the Route 6 elevation. Again, the existing limits would be from this corner down to this corner here, where we're creating a signage band utilizing just overbuild framing and applying that same insulated metal panel to create just kind of bump it up and create a signage band, capping it off with a kind of a decorative cornice consistent with the existing conditions on the bank road side. And this area here is the proposed one-story addition area. Again, we have provided a wing wall here with some supplemental landscaping for the view. And so the photograph here kind of shows the existing tree line. And, you know, as far as the landscaping layout, I would refer to the landscaping plan for that. We've tried to kind of throw some, the proposed landscaping in here to show how that would buffer. But again, I would refer to the landscaping plan for the final layout of that. Moving to the 2D elevations. Again, this would be the north elevation here, which would be on Bank. This would be the existing entry of the Toys R Us, which we would be reusing. I get the one-story addition portion. And then this would be the west elevation, the signage band facing Route 6. And then the south elevation here would be Route 6 elevation. Again, we're just doing a two-tone paint scheme to complement the colors of the insulated metal panel. East elevation here, this is the area that Don was talking about where the existing grading didn't allow for a clean access to the overhead doors. So this will just be infilled with metal panel consistent with the rest of the exterior. And those would just be converted to interior access units. As far as the materials go, the color palette here shows the the red would here available stock color for the insulated metal panel, and again the insulated metal panel here, and then the paint color schemes would be just colors to complement the proposed metal panel material. And that would conclude the kind of running around the exterior of the building. Thank you.
Jared. So should I bring the site plan up, see if anyone has any questions? Let's go back.
Okay. Anybody on the board?
Yes, the Westchester County wrote a comment about green energy technology that might be applicable to this site, especially because of the expansive roof. That's one question I was thinking about. The other one has to do with our planning department memo regarding the parking if this went to a different use. And I don't understand clearly how that is applicable at this point, because I looked in the code and I didn't see anything about that. If the use changes in the future, then I think the only way to get the parking back is to demolish what they put in. I don't know if that needs to be addressed. So those are the two
Well,
questions.
was it addressed? Dawn,
Excuse me?
did you address it?
Address the comment about
I had two comments. One was green energy. Maybe we can just deal with that.
Okay. So one of the things that we are going to be providing for as a follow-up submission is we're putting together a lighting photometric plan, and we are planning to take the existing site lights and retrofit them with LEDs. So that's one advancement in green technology that we're planning on utilizing for the site. And any of the lights proposed, the building mounted lights, will also be LEDs, which is not what's out there now. I believe what they've got is our metal halide for the wall packs and for the pole mounted lights. And I can't speak for anything else on the building, but that's for the site plan. So,
And the solar array, they suggested a rooftop solar.
We'll pass that on to the applicant, but there's heard no intention to do that at this point. So.
And then the other issue was the parking issue.
Okay, as far as the parking goes, so when we originally submitted the site plan, which was a more aggressive, the additions were actually larger. We were able to accommodate enough parking for an alternative use on the site with parallel parking spaces along the sides, the eastern and western additions of the buildings. And so that's, we had proven with our first submission that we could accommodate enough parking for an alternative use, provided the entrances were at the front of the building. So we will address that memo and submit that back to the board.
Thank you.
So in other words, you believe that you can accommodate it?
We do. There may be some areas that will require some additional pavement put back in. Let me just jump back to the site plan. So, we took out pavement in this area because we're adjusting the grades to get in here. And instead of, taking out lower pavement and putting in the driveway, which is at a slope, and then putting parking spaces back in that we don't need for this project, we, opted, particularly based on recommendations from the board, to provide landscaping for our site plan in that location. But that's actually a spot where more parking spaces could be put back in to meet that requirement. And really, I think that that location there and the trees, we had been proposing up until this point to keep this section of the building further out and remove this curb and push the pavement out. And we decided to recess the building a little bit, keep that curb, and we're trying to minimize the amount of new pavement, new impervious, and we were trying to minimize the amount of disturbance. But of course, another option would be to, more parking spaces if needed could be provided along there. But those are a couple of locations where in a future situation, parking spaces could be accommodated. But otherwise, we were able to accommodate enough parking spaces on the site. So we'll probably provide
you will show that, right?
Site plan.
You will show that
with the narrative. So
okay, you will do that.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just recommending to the board, notwithstanding that it's not required as a code requirement, of course, but it's good. That's a good knowledge set to have for the future, so that you have an understanding of, if this tenant leaves, how you may reuse the building in its present form or not. I mean, I agree with Aaron that the site, as the parking will dictate the size of the building usage, as is the case in most of our development projects. However, if you know where you are at the beginning, I think it's a good knowledge set to have and a good exercise to go through, so that you know what the future holds for this building.
Yeah, and I think,
this parking requirement is a very, very extremely light parking requirement for a building, and I don't think there's any other type of building use that has such a light requirement. So I think it's a good knowledge set to have. So I recommend that you actually go through with it.
Yeah, and you might want to consider the western portion of the outdoor, access units. That could be interior parking if it changed to an office building or a retail, whatever might require more spaces, a restaurant. You could have covered parking in that section by removing the doors, or something, a minimal, alteration.
Correct.
And I think that would give you ample space. You wouldn't even have to go messing around with the landscape.
That's preferable, yes.
Yes, I agree with that.
So,
Or a future applicant could determine that they don't need this portion of the building and they'd rather have exterior surface parking and remove it. But right, there are options within the site.
So you're going to tell us all those things.
Yes, we are. That's what we're going to do. We haven't gotten to that yet.
And, to Aaron's point with that Westchester County letter, if you could bounce it off the applicant to see what they might be willing to do, that would be great. Apparently, we love solar here in Yorktown, but but we don't. You have to have a pilot. We're not going to be giving away tax dollars.
I heard that. Understandable.
Yeah. Okay. Does anybody else on the board have any comments or concerns about the application? Or Jeff? John?
I just have one additional, which is, Dawn, if you could bring up the partial plan.
Yes, of course. Let me get my.
So the western sidewalk that you're bringing in from the street, yes, there, and you have the crosswalk, and then you have the striped area, which guides people to the building. I think that striped area will be better served as a curbed sidewalk. I just think it'll be safer. I don't expect a lot of people to be walking to their self-storage unit, but nevertheless, it's a possibility. And if you're bringing it in like that, I think that's probably the better choice to have. So that would be my recommendation.
A curb. Would you consider a larger striped area?
I just think sidewalks are better.
Okay.
I mean, I just think they're safer.
Okay. Any comments from the public? Anybody waving at you, Robin?
Not at the moment. Anyone from the public can click the raise hand button at the bottom of the participants window or hit *9 on their phone.
Ready. Counselor, do you have any comments?
No, I don't, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Anybody else? Of course, we welcome any written comments. Perhaps we should make that formally part of a motion to close with a 10-day written comment period. If we have no further comments at the present time, is there a motion to close the public hearing for New York Self-Storage in Jefferson Valley?
Motion.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And we'll leave it open for. Well, I think we've exhausted actually all the possibilities on this over the course of our review, but shall we leave it open for 10 days, gentlemen? For public comment? Written comment, excuse me.
Can't hurt it. I guess it has no impact right on there. I think it's all right.
It has no impact on the schedule, right? I mean.
Right.
Okay. Very good. Well, that was the last item on our public session of the agenda. the public portion of the agenda, so without further ado, I will entertain a motion to close the regular session.
Sorry, so
wait,
procedurally, I apologize. We move along so quickly. So you're going to keep the public hearing open for written public comment? That's what
I offered that to the board. You know, if it's not going to interfere with your schedule. I see we also have Mark Blanchard here now too. Well, but Mark, you're not on this application. You're on some of the next items.
we had a draft resolution that was circulated around.
Yes, we do.
Okay. So can we backtrack a little and forgive me for being the acting chair? Be patient with me, Dawn. If I am confident that we have addressed many of the issues. Do we want to review the resolution, gentlemen, and see what we might want to do about this application? It seems like we have a few details yet to be discussed, and possibly amendments to the site plan. Dawn, if you have to speak with the applicants about the sidewalk, you're going to get to us with parking. I mean, I think we'd rather see some of that addressed, and the possibility of having a discussion about solar or any other energy saving other than the LED lights. I think there's a couple of things yet to be addressed that I think we should probably have you back one more time. How does the rest of the board feel?
I don't know. I don't think we need it back one more time. If there's no written comments in the next 10 days, close it up.
Well, I think Dawn's asking for us to consider the resolution before us and possibly entertain the approval of such resolution.
Could any of those be considered conditions of approval?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that we want to make it a condition. I mean, I frankly, about the sidewalks, I agree with John Tegeter 100%. The parking, I think I think it's quite evident that you will have the spaces.
Yes, I agree.
As we discussed, if I thought that you would not be able to provide us with some sort of satisfactory way of addressing that issue, then I would definitely want to hold this off. But I think on those two issues, I think we can cover that in the resolution. I don't know how the rest of the board feels about the energy saving devices or systems that might be put into play, but I have no problem with this. I think it's a very attractive building. I think the site has been softened somewhat from its rather cubic look, and I think it's going to be nicer looking at the end of the day. And of course, I'm all for having spaces not remain vacant and unused. So I would be in favor of moving along if the rest of the board is satisfied with what we've seen thus far, and modifying the resolution to include what we've discussed this evening.
I got to agree with you, John. Move it along.
Aaron?
The only question I have is, John Tegeter, how many parking spaces are required on this site?
I believe it was 15, if I recall.
Starting 27?
Actually, I think that, hold on. So I thought we're actually only required to provide 8 parking spaces, and 27 are provided.
Because the other point that Westchester County raised is cutting back on some of those spaces and reducing the amount of impervious surface.
So we're trying to find a balance between the amount of disturbance and the reduction, the amount of impervious that we're reducing. So as part of our stormwater management, and that's something we're actually working, we're going to have to work through with the town engineer as one of the conditions of approval. So we're certainly working to reduce parking spaces, but we are trying to balance that with the amount of disturbance we're proposing for the project.
So is that an issue that needs to be addressed by us in considering an approval at this point?
The reduction of the impervious surface?
The applicant is saying basically that they're trying to balance the disturbance, I guess, with the amount of impervious surfaces that remain, and they haven't come up with a final number. Is that what you're saying, in effect? Dawn, has that been determined?
We're working on it. That's going to, we're working on the SWIP for the project.
All I need to know is if
the plan for the project, and the two, two of the items that affect that are on a redevelopment project is the amount of disturbance and the reduction in impervious.
Is that an issue that needs to be held open for us, or is that something we can just defer and do the resolution of approval anyway?
Well, Dawn has this as part of the SWIP. She's couching this as part of the SWIP, which it certainly is. The SWIP is your approval as well. So if you do an approval, you would have to condition it on the approval of the SWIP, which would include that item.
Is there an advantage to basically splitting it up at this point, or just waiting until January and doing the whole thing?
So one of the conditions on the draft approval resolution has to do with the town engineer and I believe it's, let me find that in here. So we have a condition in the resolution about the SWIP.
Final SWIP, yeah.
Right.
Aaron, isn't this a little counter intuitive to the fact that we're worried about if the site changes, they need to add parking, but now we're also looking to take away parking?
I'm not trying to resolve the issue at this point. I'm just saying, is this an issue that is going to hold us up, or can we proceed anyway at this point? Let it play out later.
Yeah, I mean, we've done that before, right, John? I mean, we've had approving resolutions subject to the SWIP.
Subject to the SWIP, subject to the landscaping plans, subject to certain items on the site plan.
Right.
Yes.
So we're not going to end up with more parking spaces now, but we are asking that with the consideration of a future use of a different type that does not require, does not base the site plan approval on such minimal parking as a storage facility. We see the opportunity for additional spaces, either in the landscape sections or with the interior parking option, perhaps, as long as that could be shown to us. That can be a condition of the approval, that the applicant, provides a satisfactory evidence that additional parking could be added for alternate uses of the existing building once improved, as well as the SWIP and the landscaping plan, final landscaping and final lighting for that matter.
I think, John, looking at the resolution, there's a requirement there for the final, approval of the final SWIP.
Right.
Honestly, my thinking here is they're not increasing any of the impervious surface.
Right.
And so, and then with the parking, why is that necessarily this applicant's concern, right? If somebody else takes the property after them and requires additional parking, like you said, they'll either convert some of that, that storage units into covered parking, or as Don said, they'll remove a portion of the building that they may not need. I mean, almost like, why do they have to get saddled with planning for the next potential uses?
Yeah, I think something as generic as a letter saying that, XYZ space could be used for additional parking would be satisfactory. I don't see that as too much of an imposition in terms of a condition. If I did, I would want to see an analysis based on some other, future consideration, but that's not what we're looking at right now.
Well, it's a matter of providing the plan that shows the spaces that are required, and it
Right.
really is. It's really delineated in the code under paragraph H, which says, in addition, the owner shall submit a plan which establishes that in the event of a change of use of the site from self-storage to a permitted use, provision can be made for a parking at a ratio of one space for every 1,000 square feet of building. So
right.
I just think they need to show the plan.
And I'd like to chime in on that. And we have essentially already shown that with our first submission. So that is not a problem.
Excellent.
We're not, we have no problem with that. Understood.
Okay, so we're really talking about a sidewalk. And we're talking about a SWIP, and we're talking about evidence of parking, proof of parking, or however you want to quantify or qualify that. I have no problem. I would like to see the project move forward and the space being used and not have this eyesore up there. No offense to the current owners or anything else. I'd like to see the landscaping put in. I'd like to see the building change. So, I appreciate Westchester County's input. I think, we certainly would welcome, those types of applications in other applications that come before us in terms of energy saving. But I, for one, am ready to move forward with the approving resolution if the rest of the board would entertain it.
I agree.
As long as the resolution is ready to go and it's going to encompass all these things, then let's do it.
Let's do it.
Okay, so Mr. Tegeter, with the resolution that we have, we're going to qualify that with the sidewalk, the parking, to the satisfaction of staff. We'll leave it at that. And the landscaping plan and the SWIP. If we can,
that's fine.
Move forward with the resolution with those additions and considerations, then I will entertain a motion to move forward with this and declare ourselves lead agency. Do I have such a motion?
Motion.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. And now for a negative declaration on the instant application. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And now for the resolution before us with the language that we have just discussed. Do I have a motion to approve the New York Self-Storage in Jefferson Valley at 621 Bank Road?
Motion.
Second.
Gotcha.
Second for Garrigan. Very good. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye as well. Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you all very much. We do appreciate
Now, Dawn, you have to tell your client what just went on now.
my client is listening in, so
very good, very good.
And I'm sure he's very thankful. Thank you all for your input. We do appreciate it.
Okay, enjoy the
Yes,
holiday.
no, we're very thankful. Thank you again. Good night.
All right, good night.
Good night.
Okay, now back to entertaining a motion to close the regular session of the December 21st.
We just have a question before you close. The question is whether, I think we ought to clarify that we did or did not leave the public hearing open for 10 days. Because when I made that motion, I didn't add 10 days. So I just moved to close.
Okay, so I'm with you. Let's clarify that we did not leave it open. Your motion did not have that, and we kind of got past that anyway. So I think we're past it.
Okay, so
Does everyone agree? Does anyone disagree? Does anyone disagree? Okay, we're done.
Okay, we're done. Thank you all. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Anybody else on the regular session? Do you have any comments or additions before we close that? That was our last agenda item, so I didn't mean to jump the gun. If someone would like to make a motion to close the regular session, then this is the time to do so.
Motion.
Second? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Very good, gentlemen. Thank you for putting up with me as acting chair.
You did a good job, buddy.
with a little help from my friend.
I'll be worried, very worried.
Okay. It's the end of the year, you know. I'm tired halfway through this year. It's unbelievable.
Oh, God.
Okay, so now we're entering into time.